I will call the meeting to order at 6 o'clock. We'll do roll call, and since Amber's not here, we just all go around.
You want me to start? Yeah. Emma Bastola, Director of Curriculum and Instruction. Jen Garrett, Principal, Ludlow Elementary School.
Craig Upbader, Principal of Mount Holly School.
Lane Ellington, Superintendent.
Ray Gandino. Jamie Dickey.
Kelly Tarvell.
Shirley Allen, Business Manager.
Dave Martin.
Jen Foley. Caitlin Benson. No, thank you.
All right, thank you. That's that today. We need to do approval of agenda. Do we need to move things around for time-wise, considering I don't want to keep Katie here forever, she doesn't want to?
It sounded like 6:15 was the approximate time
Okay,
for Jeannie to show up.
okay,
So you could make a motion to kind of suspend things when she does show up, to be able to engage in that with her and then come back.
okay. And then do we want to do? I assume I know why you're here. Maybe I shouldn't make that assumption, but I assume you're here because you hope to be on the board.
Yes.
It's in the superintendent's report.
It's okay, all right. I just trying to be efficient. All right. All right, we'll do it that way then. All right. So do we have any other additions or deletions?
The question of discussing the possible bond act, would that be under the Todd's report or the committee report, or should it be a freestanding?
Thought we talked about that, and I don't remember where.
Yeah, it could be under the facilities report, or you could make a motion, since this is the beginning of the meeting, to have it as a separate thing.
I'm happy to do it as part of Todd's report.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. And then we'll take a motion to approve the agenda as it's written. Nothing's really changed.
So moved.
Any seconds? Second. Thank you. All those in favor of approving the agenda as written?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Perfect. Thank you. Approval of September 11th, 2024 regular meeting minutes. Should to approve them.
Move to approve.
Thank you. And a second.
Second.
Any discussion? See anything that stuck out to me. All those in favor of approving the meeting minutes for September 11th as they are?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Or comments? None? Public comments? Good, okay. Superintendent's report.
A lot of stuff we can talk about if you want. So one of the things that was sent out a little while ago was the timeline for the budget process. And so when we sit down to do the agenda planning meetings, we'll pull that out and kind of take a look at where we are. A lot of that, it's general in a sense, but it's just kind of meant to keep us all on track so that we're hitting the deadlines that we need to, so that we can hopefully do a vote on January 1st and then get everything passed in March. So that's what was sent out to the board a little while ago. We do have 2 applicants for the open board positions. Right, we have one Ludlow position open and one Mount Holly position open. So Caitlin Benson from Ludlow has applied, as well as Katie Kowski. Sorry about that. I practiced it all. Say it.
Coach Kowski.
Yeah, for Mount Holly. And their application letters are going to be forwarded to the board for the next meeting. I have reached out with Kelly to the select boards of both towns because under the rules, they have a right to be able to kind of interview them and then provide a recommendation to this board, but this board is the deciding. We have not heard that. So it may be that they leave that. So the other piece, I think Julie had asked to talk a little bit, and I can go into as as much depth or as little depth as folks would like about the discussions that have been going on over at Green Mountain Union in terms of proposals for helping them deal with their enrollment challenges. So they were working on trying to figure out a way to balance the overage of students at Chester Andover and the small number of students at Cavendish. And it seems like the answer would be obvious, that things are never that simple in public education. So they worked on it for a while, recognized that they had reached an impasse, and then handed that work off to the administrative team. We sat down, we put together 4 or 5 parameters to kind of put boundaries around the solutions that we were proposing to make sure that they were going to meet the goals that we had set. And we ended up with kind of 3 top proposals that came out of that discussion. There are proposals that the GMU board would consider, but there's nothing, set in stone. They're just thoughts and ideas. So one of them, proposal number 3, deals with the idea of potentially consolidating the district, building one efficient elementary school that has all 4 elementary schools go to it. There's a lot of positive reasons for that. The biggest negative reason is that, and a legitimate one, is that people would feel uncomfortable in terms of giving up the community, sense of community that the community schools do provide. But again, it's a proposal, and one of the reasons that it's on there is because, as we were talking just before the meeting, the Commission on Education Funding, it's very likely that one of their recommendations to the legislature is going to be you need to consolidate buildings. I think we've talked, I'm not sure in as much detail at this board about education funding in the state of Vermont, but unless every district cuts, your taxes pretty much won't go down because we all pay for each other. So if some districts cut and other districts are raising, right, taxes will either stay the same or go up. So everybody's got to do the same thing, or the majority of the people have to do the same thing for us to see a significant change in tax rates. They really only have 2 levers that they can pull. One of them is taking the 300 to 350 school buildings across the state of Vermont, most of which are in fairly poor shape because of deferred maintenance, and requiring folks to combine them into one building, or at least few buildings. The other piece that they are looking at, given the data that we've seen them looking at, is what they call right sizing, is making sure student and staff ratios aren't too small. So those are really the only 2 levers that they have. So it is possible that at some point in time, this may be a law that the legislature puts into place. So it's kind of good to at least have people thinking about what may be coming. So questions or thoughts on that piece? Because I know it can be disconcerting to see that stuff. There was a strategy, by the way. The reason that information wasn't well shared prior to us just sending it out, they have been fairly contentious over this restructuring work there. I was concerned that if some people got it early, they could pick and choose and then go out and drive their own narrative before we had the actual public discussion, which happened last time. So it was, from my perspective, for good or bad, it seemed safer to get it all out to everybody at the same time, which was the October 6th. Yes.
So I know you had a meeting on it yesterday, I'm sorry I couldn't be there. Would any of these possibilities mean that we, at the town level, would lose their school choice?
No, if unless the state forces it, and so this is one of the things to keep in the back of your mind. If the state forces it, we do what they tell us we have to do if they pass it as a law. Right now, if folks had decided to come together, all the towns would have to vote, right? Everybody would have to be in agreement. You'd have a chance to kind of renegotiate what the rights and privileges are of each town and each current district. But no, it couldn't just happen. Everybody would have to be.
It would be the same process we went through when the high school closed. which was long and contentious and
Yep.
multiple votes and promises made by the state that I will publicly say were not fulfilled. So I don't know, how people would feel.
Yeah.
It's
Oh, and they don't have an interest
7 years
over there either,
right.
that proposal.
I mean, it's such a large area. You have families who live in Rutland County, and probably most of Mount Holly goes to Mill River. A lot of Ludlow, I don't know what the numbers are, but I'm thinking of my son's class. I think most of his 7th grade is dispersed more elsewhere than Green Mountain. It's not helpful for families in a rural state to be like, you need to travel half, the whole distance of the state to see your kid play soccer.
Yeah.
Good luck.
No, it's, that's going to be the biggest problem with any solution as we look at this, is the geography, is the distances between places. So the state's going to have a hard time. Like I said, if this is one of the levers they can pull, at best what they might do is some of the places like up the Northeast Kingdom, which I forget, it's got 11 or 12 or 16 districts, something like that. It's a huge space. They'd probably have to do 2 or 3 central schools, and it would still be long drives to get to school. But what they're facing right now, like I said, is it would solve a bunch of problems. It would, if they force this, so this is what might make it attractive to them. Taxes will go down for everybody. They recognize that the building stock, the facilities are poor. They recognize they don't have the money to be able to fund it. I mean, they haven't funded matching funds for I don't know how long in the state of Vermont. 2008. And so, if they forced everybody to kind of build new buildings or gave them an incentive to say, we'll pay for half of it, so we'll do 5 a year or something like that, it might make it worthwhile. The piece, I think, where people can, and again, my opinion, where people can rest a little bit more assured is the idea that if it gets to the legislature and it looks like it's going to be contentious, they'll probably shy away from it. Right? To be able to continue to represent their communities, they have to stay in office. And if it looks like it's going to cost them significant votes, it would seem like they would probably shy away.
Julie had her hand up.
Yeah, go ahead, Julie.
Hi, thank you for giving some of the background on that. A couple of thoughts. I totally appreciate the work of Green Mountain in trying to solve what sounds like a frustrating problem around enrollment and equity and that sort of thing. My request would be that to the extent that our district, Ludlow-Mount Holly, is implicated in those decisions, that we be a partner, we have a seat at the table, that they must involve delegates from our board in having those conversations. Because it just feels like if that were one of the, what was surprising to me was to read that one of the solutions might be to dissolve or, fundamentally restructure not only our board, but also the school buildings. And it didn't, it would have been great to have, if that were on the table as an idea. I kind of feel like as a board member, we have an obligation to be directly involved in those discussions. So that's one piece of feedback. And it may be a great idea. I think we need to have a say have a seat at the table at whatever, planning is involved in that work. And then the second comment is that I appreciated your perspective that, kind of delocalizing or centralizing the, K-6 aspect of, the TRSU education, I think would have, I would be concerned, I would like to explore further the sort of community impact of closing a bunch of very local schools that we all feel sort of directly, involved in, and how that would really impact our communities. I mean, I know that Ludlow-Mount Holly is a small district, compared to others. But I also think that one of the great things about it is that we're so laser focused on issues involving K-6 education in these two little schools that we know so well. Those are my thoughts on that. But for sure, my request, and I don't know how my colleagues feel, but my request would be, to the extent there are further discussions about a fundamental change to either our board or our schools, that we must be involved in that.
Yeah, but folks do realize they have no power to, if they decided that they wanted to pursue that option, they would reach out and say, hey, do you have any interest? And you have the right to say no. So I do apologize if folks felt a little off guard. I do understand that piece, but that was not the intent. This was just their discussion about ideas. And so that was a part of the rationale behind it. But yeah, no, if there was any seriousness about it, so you most certainly would be involved. In terms of the small school piece, and I'm not against small schools. Again, my job is just to be kind of rational. I can tell you a little bit about what the research says. Small schools, the one benefit they have over larger schools is that sense of community. And that sense of community does translate into increased performance across a variety of measures, most notably staying in school through graduation. But typically only in communities that have a very large group of folks that are low economic status. Larger schools in general, the students tend to perform significantly better because they've got more people pouring resources and concentrating them into the one facility. They have more access to specialized programs and advanced programs because of that additional funding. And then one of the ways that people try to recreate that small school feel in a larger building, which has been quite effective, is breaking it down into houses. Right, so they're in a building. Sometimes the houses are separate wings within the building, but that does recreate that small school feel if it's done right, and that community piece. And so again, not trying to sell anything. It was a very good question that you asked, and there's some good information around it. So I do appreciate that.
Anything else in your report?
Huh?
Yeah.
Had me sit down, and so makes me lose a little energy, but that's the majority. Yeah, that I think is important.
Yeah, and I agree with Julie that we should have say in it if it's going further, for sure. So we do have a guest. Hello. And so because we weren't sure exactly timing wise, can I ask for a motion to not pause, what's the word I want?
I'd say suspend.
Suspend, thank you. The agenda for the moment so that we can hear from Deweese?
Yes, Collins Deweese. Deweese is fine.
Thank you. And then we'll resume when that is over.
So
Thank you. A second?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Perfect, thank you.
Hi. Thanks for having me. I'm sitting here in South Carolina at the moment, not getting hit by the hurricane in the slightest. So all is good. I'm not going to blow away. I was up in your area a couple of weeks ago doing a Policy Governance 101 retreat with members of the TRSU board, Green Mountain board, and Bella from your board. And I'm visiting your meeting, and I'm not sure, Lane, another meeting in another week to see if you have any questions. I don't know what conversation you've already had about policy governance. I don't know if there's interest that you have. I did share a timeline early this week with Lane of what it might look like. TRSU and Green Mountain plan to move forward with this governing process. You don't have to, but I am available to your district to act as a coach and mentor if you choose to, and to train you and provide you with support. So I did not come with a presentation. I'm kind of here to see if or how I can help you or answer any questions as to what it is.
I think some of us were at the retreat this summer. And then you were there, right? From Ludlow on last Friday. Was it last Friday? 2 weeks ago? And so I'm not sure that we all have a great idea. If you can give us like 30-second elevator version of policy governance, that would probably be great.
Yes, I'd be happy to, of course. So you are a governing board, and you are elected by your constituents to lead the Ludlow-Mount Holly schools. And as such, you govern in some way. Most school boards never actually talk about how they're governing. You do follow Robert's rules, but that's not really a governance model. That's how you lead a discussion. What policy governance is it is a model that was designed by John and Miriam Carver in the 90s for both profit and nonprofit boards, school districts, businesses. It's a variety. My experience is always school districts, though. And it is a practical approach that enables your board to ensure that you're both defining and achieving your organizational performance. You're defining your success based upon what your community wants your success to be. Simply put, do you know whether or not you are making success? How do you know? How do you know that what you're doing is effective? How does Lane know, as your superintendent, what direction you want him to go unless you follow a process that defines it? Policy governance is a model of 10 principles that speaks to the role of your community, where the board fits in that role, where the superintendent fits in that role, how you set your community's values in place so that your district is moving towards defined success as you define it, and how you know your superintendent is moving you towards that success. So it's a set of 10 principles, and you develop your principles through written policy, and Lane, as your superintendent, is accountable to those policies and to you, and provides reports back to you on a regular basis as to how he's doing. And you have a very clear role between the board and the superintendent of delegation and authority and accountability. Now, that was 30 seconds for a 6-hour training a couple of weeks ago. So it is very high level, but that's basically what it is. It's a very formal model that allows you to focus on what the board should be focusing on, and allows the superintendent to focus on what the board tells him to focus on, and what's really the management of the district.
And I think the last we spoke as this group, our idea was sort of to let TRSU pilot it, and see what it was really all about, and then jump on or not as we saw appropriate going into the future. I don't know if you want to speak to anything, because you were the one that was at the 6-hour training. If you want to add your 30 seconds, I don't know.
No, I think that was great. And Emma was there as well with us. I think we should all, everyone should have the training on this.
Yeah, as coordinators.
If you, now, Lane has worked in a policy governance district, so he is experienced in this. If you as a board at some point decide you want to move forward, you have a couple of options for training. There's an online training that you could do individually. It has 8 modules of learning, and then I could support the implementation, or I could do a training for you as I did for the other 2 boards as well. You are welcome to wait and see how they're doing. This is totally up to you and your decision. But I am under contract with the district for the next 6 months to help support it. So I just wanted you to keep that in mind as well.
And how long are the 8 modules total?
So that all depends on the learner. And the nice thing about the 8 modules is that they can stop and go whenever you want. So a module can run anywhere from 20 to 40 minutes. It's interactive. There's videos, there's reading, there's quizzes. And it's a module that it goes over each of the 10 principles in 8 modules. I believe that TRSU and Green Mountain are asking their board members who did not attend the training to complete the modules by their November board meeting, with the thought that they will start developing policy in November and start implementing the policy in December. So, it all depends on, like when I did the training, because I had to do it as part of my master training, on a Sunday morning, I might do 1 or 1.5 modules and say, okay, that's all I have time for, and I move on. And it's saved for me and I come back to it. It's not a sit down in front of a computer unless you choose to, for the entire time. So 6-8 hours, perhaps.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think the only question, especially since, you did a good response to it for the other district, is just a basic idea of how it works in a mixed district where, some are policy government, some are not.
Yeah. So I am the former superintendent of the Rutland Northeast Supervisory Union, and I just can't get away from school boards. So I retired, but here I am sitting at your school board meeting. And Rutland Northeast chose to do what you're describing. The Barstow School District within the Supervisory Union wanted to move forward with policy governance. The SU chose to move forward with them. The Otter Valley Board wanted to stay behind a little bit. What it means is that each board, each district, you need to set your own ends policy, which is the policy that defines success for you. Who are you serving? What benefit are they going to get? And at what worth is that benefit? When you define those benefits, Lane has his marching orders, and that's what he's going to work on. It is possible for him to be doing that for 2 districts and not for a 3rd district. That is possible. The SU really exists to support your districts, the Green Mountain and the Ludlow-Mount Holly districts. That's what they exist to support. They don't actually stand in the classroom. They might provide some staff to stand in the classroom, but they're a district that provides special education services, superintendent services, curriculum services. You get the idea. So they have kind of a slightly different looking ends policy, but yours might look something like the students of Ludlow-Mount Holly, they are your beneficiaries, will receive well-rounded education focused on core academics plus civics. I'm making this up. At a cost that your community can support. That might be an example of what you're setting as an end statement. Lane then goes and he interprets that and comes back to you with, this is how we're going to do this. And then he's accountable for reporting to you on how he's doing it, what's happening, what's going along the way. At the same time, you are also setting policies that define risk management, what you are willing to tolerate. And for example, you're going to require him to follow all laws and regulations. And you're gonna set some boundaries within which he's going to work and make his decisions in the running of the district. He also needs to report back to you on how he's doing on each of those so that you have a better sense of what's actually happening in the district through the day-to-day management as the district is working to achieve what you told them you want them to achieve. At the same time, the board sets policies for itself that defines when are you going to meet? Some of this stuff you have, but not all of it. What if the board agrees to give direction to the superintendent as a whole board, not as individual board members, so that the clarity of delegation is very clear? What are your rules of governance, and are you going to hold any committees? If so, what is their charge? Are you careful that that charge does not duplicate something that the superintendent is already tasked to do? Looking at the different way, what is the role of the chair? What is the role of the chair in media? All those different pieces on how you're going to govern yourself as well, and how you're going to evaluate your superintendent. Those are all the pieces that you develop in writing, and then you just simply start to implement them on a regular monthly basis.
Any other questions or thoughts? So we have information for discussion that we will continue to have, and we will.
Absolutely. And I did provide, which I'm sure that Lane can get to you, kind of an overview of the principles and a projected timeline for TRSU, so that you could also look at that and see, if it fits into your world or not.
Yeah. Thank you. Have that actually. Thank you.
Oh, good. All right. Well, thank you for having me, and I'm happy to answer anything anytime.
Thank you for joining us.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay, so we can resume back to our regularly scheduled programming. Do we have to motion to do that? We didn't do it. Principal's report.
All righty. So our enrollment right now is 81 students. Our PTG hosted their 40th annual harvest fair this past weekend, which was a resounding success. They actually had to turn some vendors away. They had so many people who were interested. This month is Fire Safety Month. Tomorrow we have Ludlow Fire Department coming with the smoke trailer and the fire truck, and they'll be doing short assemblies throughout the morning for our students. We had our open house on October 1st. We were disappointed in the low turnout. We were conflicted with some soccer games and some other events that were happening. We did have our book fair open at that same time, but as a staff, we kind of reflected on that, and we think that next year we might try to combine our back to school social with an open house, and we're going to see if Julie or I can bring the book fair in earlier in the year so we can have one big kind of event at the beginning without all of the different sports and things happening in the community. School pictures are happening on October 23rd. We hosted the flu and vaccine clinic today in our school library. Our sixth graders are currently at Q8. I haven't heard anything, so I guess no news is good news. So one more day, they'll come back tomorrow afternoon. Yesterday, our third and fourth graders attended a field trip at the Hildene Museum, and they have an upcoming field trip on the 23rd with Mount Holly to Vince in Queechee. What's that?
Maybe I'll get the pictures done before they leave.
We're going to try our best to get them pictured and then on the bus. Yeah, you schedule things and then things come up and then people don't realize that they're scheduled at different times. There's no school here on Friday. We have a district in service for our staff, K through 6. We're hosting here at Ludlow. We're going to be rotating throughout the district this year for our district in service days. And then there's no school on Monday for Indigenous Peoples Day for the kids. And the only other thing, we don't have a bus radio. So we're in the process of reaching out to get a bus radio that we can communicate with the driver in the event that someone gets on the bus that shouldn't get on the bus, or get a call later that the kid shouldn't have gotten on the bus. So we've been using Dane's cell phone, and he has to pull over to answer the phone, and he shouldn't even be on the phone. He's on the bus. So we're going to work on putting that into place.
And just as a temporary measure, I'm not gonna speak for anybody, please don't. But have you talked to the town if they have an extra radio that you could use in the meantime?
I have not, I'll reach out to them. Thank you for that suggestion. Just a reminder, our SIP goals, we're working to improve our reading proficiency scores and our math proficiency scores. Our data teams have been meeting, we've been looking at data from last year, we've been looking at our data that we've done this year. Our MAPS assessment just closed at the end of last week. We still have some stragglers who are finishing up, and our kindergartners are working on that. And we're really looking at, because we're small and we can look at very specific information. So a small sample size is not as reliable as a larger sample size. The good thing about a small sample size, we can look at the data and we know which kids we have to target. So we're in the process of structuring our groups and really making sure that we're hitting those kids hard with the skills that they, not physically, but we're hitting them hard with the skills that they absolutely need as we build build those gaps for those students. And I'm going to be working with 1-2 classroom during their what I need block for reading, as well as pushing in to support their skills block for reading. So that's what I have. Thank you.
So a lot of similar things. We had our open house and book fair on Wednesday the 25th. It was really well attended. Just did our school pictures last week. We also had the flu and COVID vaccine clinic today. Our kids are at Q waiting as well. I'm actually heading there after the meeting tonight. Duties. On the 15th, Tuesday, the kindergarten is taking a trip to the Wellwood Orchard, and our 3-4 cohorts are going to Bins on the 23rd. The following day on the 24th, we have the vision screenings from the Lions Club, and Cider Days is coming up this weekend. So the kids have been busily making their Super Kids soup bowls and all kinds of different arts and crafts, staffing their youth festival. And we have student-led conferences coming up on the 7th and 8th of November. That mentioned the in-service on Friday. We'll be participating in that as well. We've also been working weekly in our data teams and working towards our SIP goals. We just finished the maps for the fall window. And so Deb and I will share data from both UTCAP once the state lifts the embargo, which should be very soon. So hopefully in November we can give you some updates on our data. And last but not least, we seem to have a very serious bus driver community. Just took the course and has about 20 hours of on-vehicle driving practice to do with Dane. And we're looking to get that completed and hopefully before our next meeting.
Thank you, Craig. I just wanted to ask, after that incident in high school, that possible threat, do you or Debbie have any sort of walkie-talkies for the teachers, besides their classroom phones, but just actively while they're walking around, some sort of walkie-talkie?
So our classrooms do all have walkie-talkies, and they should have them in their rooms and charged. We gave them out at the beginning of this school year. Prior to that, they had all been housed up in the main office, and people would take them as they would go out to recess, but every classroom should have a walkie-talkie.
Yeah, similarly, we have walkie-talkies in all of the classrooms. Our parents have them for recess duties. We have them for our after-school program as well. And I know both schools have been doing both fire drills as well as options-based response drills. We're all up to date.
Yeah, that's actually, the swatting, incidents, the Vermont Intelligence Center, did send out a kind of an advisory to say, hey, this is happening, or could be happening. They kind of predicted it a little bit. So the odds are that, we're going to see it in the state. Luckily it's usually out of state or out of country folks, that are just kind of trying to cause disruption. But it's important to be prepared. But, it is possible that, it's going to hit the state.
And can you be ironic that it was the same day that they had the drill that everyone knew about?
Yeah.
I just thought that was strange.
It was concerning too, because usually they do, 10, 15 schools at a time. I mean, they're trying to cause chaos. From what I could tell, there weren't a lot of news articles about it. And I was kind of reaching out, trying to see who else got hit.
Yeah.
The only other school that I know that got hit was up there.
Same.
Yeah. Now, usually what they do is it's usually a robocall that goes out to either law enforcement. In this case, I believe it was to the suicide hotline.
Questions or comments for Deborah Craig? Thank you. Curriculum report.
So I have the report in the drive, and essentially this month I highlighted the SIP goal that's related to math, and to just talk a little bit more about the change idea that we're working on in our schools related to deepening math discourse as a means of pulling all students on to access that universal instruction. So I go into kind of some detail there around what we want to see teachers kind of providing for opportunities for students in terms of questioning to deepen that discourse. One of the things that we're doing to help support that in our schools is we're part of the SSIP, or the State Systemic Improvement Plan. Part of that is that we are working with a coach, a math coach, that's supporting us in deepening discourse instructionally through math, but also we're working with OGAP, the Ongoing Assessment Project, where we are supporting the continuing understanding of math learning progressions that we started with the ESSER funds. So over the course of this school year, during the in-service days, teachers in grades 3 through 6 are going to be deepening their content knowledge, but also applying that knowledge into practice through the coaching opportunities during in-service days. And so that's really targeted at grade students in grades 3 through 6. So it's those teachers teaching that grade levels. And we took some baseline data in terms of just kind of street level data. What are we seeing? We saw some really amazing things happening in our classrooms, teachers really engaging students. Actually just had a conversation with a teacher today about, some of the work that she's seeing around students just questioning other students and really deepening their conversation about math and using language. So it talks a little about the research in the report. Are there any questions about that?
Can you, I'm looking at your thing, but I'm not always sure exactly what slide you're looking at, or if you are on that side, can you talk a little bit about the baseline data or not?
So I'm in October, the October report. I'm in the October report. And in the October report, it's actually not a presentation, it's just a report. I didn't include the observational data in there as it's teacher.
That's why I can't find
it's
it.
Teacher
that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
But in there, the next piece that I wanted to update you, because this was really kind of what was happening in the last couple of weeks, but last night I attended I'm going to use my notes here to help me. The Vermont State Educational Profile, the AOE did a listen and learn regional planning session with, so for the Southeast region, I attended for TRSU, boards from across the Southeast region, but also superintendents and other administrators were there with the AOE to unpack, do a couple of things. to look at granular level student level data in the region, and to share that and discuss that data. And then also it was an opportunity for us to collaborate in groups to give the agency some feedback and questions and have conversations about certain goals that they've been talking about. So actually in the same folder on TRSU website, I included in there the Vermont State Education Profile from August 30th, and that includes like detailed information about from the AOE's perspective from our state level data, if people wanted to take a look at that as a resource. I attended the session talking about academic proficiency and accountability. Some of the questions that they, actually Secretary Saunders, Interim Secretary Saunders, she facilitated it. She asked questions about there's proposed changes to our Every Student Succeeds Act that really, in that framework, that includes earlier reporting, better quality and transparency, commitment to better guidance for schools to communicate with stakeholders, and that word guidance really kind of came up quite a bit in terms of conversations. Some of the questions that they asked were, what metrics do you rely on communicating quality? What types of support and or guidance from the AOE would be most impactful? And as a state, we have been and should continue to focus on improving literacy. We also recognize that there are academic needs outside of content areas, so we're just getting feedback on that as well.
Any questions for Emma?
There's a hand up, Julie.
Oh, sorry, Julie, go ahead.
Thanks. Did Ludlow-Mount Holly conduct an initial round of, and I get confused about the different evaluation tools we use for students, but did the students in both schools go through some kind of fall, I don't know if it's the map, or I get confused by the different tests that are out there, but do we have any sense at the beginning of the year of where we're starting?
The students, actually, Deb and Craig both did talk about that. So the students are assessed using a benchmark assessment. We use the NWA MAP assessment. It's assessed 3 times. We use that measure that students are assessed in math and reading 3 times a year. And actually that information is going out to families from on Friday, October 11th. We don't have actually the data yet to share as the TRSU board because we're still through the end of October 18th, actually. We still have students who in kindergarten who are assessing because that window has been opened for them longer. So we don't actually have that yet to report to the boards as of yet.
And does that, do whatever those findings are inform the curriculum work?
They inform, I would say yes, but then they also more importantly inform instructional decision-making that the teachers are doing to help students meet the standards and the skills and the knowledge that the standards are addressing, which Craig and Deb both addressed in how they're looking at the data in their data teams to do just that. So those are the measures that they're looking at to plan the instruction for the students.
Okay.
Matter of fact, actually, we in a couple of weeks ago, we actually were learning more about our DIBELS assessment, which is a pilot that we've been doing this year around for early literacy. And one of the things that we were talking about from both Ludlow and Mount Holly is action steps, so what we can do. And actually, Deb and I met today, and she just actually spoke about how her team was talking about how they can really deepen the what they're doing to meet the needs, literacy needs of the 1-2 more strategically using the curriculum materials. Is that correct? Yeah.
Any other questions for Emma? Thank you. Facilities director.
Hey, good evening, everybody. Can everybody hear me okay?
We can.
So First, I want to start off by I went and attended the Springfield open house at their high school. EEI was the engineering firm that spearheaded that project and wanted to go and see some of their work. And their cafeteria was unbelievable. Some of the fine tuned things that they did, they put noise dampening lighting fixtures, and they hadn't had the pulled down screen yet for some online gaming sources and stuff. They hadn't put that in yet, but the place was absolutely beautiful. Springfield put on a nice presentation, and they had a fairly good turnout. So it was nice to see what people that are actually working for us can do on a larger project. So I just figured I'd share that. Not much to report for Ludlow Elementary. I do have a lot to talk about for Mount Holly, so I'll dive right into that. The boiler project is almost completed. We had a couple little hiccups along the way, nothing that surprised me at all. Parts didn't show up on time. We had a couple of delays in the startup, but the startup has been completed. Friday will be a busy day. Friday, the manufacturer for the boiler rep will be there and give everybody a quick class or instructional on how to use the digital services that provides, where we can operate that remotely for the most part. They will be coming to take the oil tank out. I got in there with one of the EI reps and we started digging around. I'm fairly confident. We dug out the top of the tank. The top of the tank looks very good. I'm hoping the bottom of the tank looks that way. It doesn't look like we're going to have any problems, knock on wood. But we'll find that out. We're going to pump that fuel, whatever's out of that, bring that to Ludlow, so there won't be any loss there. Some good news. They didn't have to reflue the chimney. They direct vented that straight up through the new boiler. So they saved some money. And everybody that's been at Mount Holly knows that we have a moisture problem underneath the crawl space of that building. It's been there, I don't know, probably since the building was constructed. The people who are going to redo the floor in the boiler room, we asked him to go underneath there to take a look around. He put a proposal together. It's a 2-ply membrane. It'll end up looking like it's brand new underneath there. They dig a little trench all the way around. They pump all the water. They put this huge 2,500 square foot dehumidifier that's going to take care of the boiler room and underneath that part of the building. And it's going to take care of all that moisture. EI is going to cover that on their dime. They're not going to charge the school district at all. They saved a little bit of money on the flue, not enough to cover that, but Eric wanted me to relay that to this board that they are going to cover that at no cost. So that's a huge relief for our school district to take care of that part of the problem of the building. That leads to a couple of other issues that we found while we were outdoors. How it got done, when, we don't know, but where the main power comes in to Mount Holly Elementary School, that mast got bent and pulled away from the fascia and soffit of the building and pretty much is dangling. It was freestanding on the building. It's not even connected. The bolts that held that mast together are pulled right out of the building. So while the electricians were there, MEI was there, I asked, the owner was there one day tying up some loose ends, asked him to give us a quote on it. We cannot leave it that way. A good windstorm is going to blow the main power onto the ground, and we got some real big problems. To all total, to put it back on, $6,930. This is one of those safety issues where we have to do this. This isn't we have to do this. They can do it on Friday. So I told them to come. They're coming on Friday to take care of this. They've set it up with Green Mountain Power. They have to shut the main power off to the building. I've lined this up with the tech department because they have to come back in and restart the router or redo something with the computers and stuff at the school. Julie's going to take care of that. We do have to find a contractor to fix the fascia board. So I'm asking, I talked to Cheryl. I'm asking that the board tonight will approve $6,930 from capital improvement to take care of that,
We need a motion for that. Can I ask, well, let's do the motion and then I'll ask. Somebody want to make a motion to approve, say the number again, Todd?
$6,930.
$6,930 to fix the power.
Service.
So moved.
Second? Thank you. My question just fell out of my head, sorry. Did we have to get 3 quotes? Did we do anything like that? Just because I know people will always ask that.
Nope, not because of that price number. I believe the 3 quote number is 40,000.
Okay. And who are we having do the work? And is that somebody we've used before or?
MEI electrical contractors. They're the ones that were doing the electrical work on the boiler. So they were right there on site. Friday's the perfect day to do it because you have to shut the power off. Green Mountain Power's got to come shut the main service right off, and they were available. It just worked out. It worked out well.
Any other questions? All right, all those in favor of the motion of approving $6,930?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Beautiful.
Okay, I wish that was the bad news. So while the engineers were there and they got on the roof and started working on putting the standpipe up, they saw what looked like something on the peak of the roof of the school. They walked up there. There's a bunch of shingles missing at the peak. We noticed some water leaking down into the boiler room. They walked on part of the roof that they came off the roof because they're afraid they would fall through. So we have some rotting up on the roof. I went back up there. I called the roofing contractor to take a look at it. We walked up there. There's definitely some plywood damage. There's a lot of shingles missing. There's some shingles that have lifted. There's a substantial amount of soffit and fascia damage where the water is leaking into the building. We're not sure. I asked him if the damage he thought that was in the one area, they're not going to know the total damage until he opens up some of the shingles. If the snow load in the winter would take that without causing any real major problems, and he could not give me an answer yes or no. So part of that roof has to be repaired this fall. You have no choice. There's some rot underneath it, and there's shingles missing at the peak of the roof. It just has to be done. As he got up there looking around, I asked him how he thought the rest of the roof looked, and it didn't take him long to make a determination that we need a roof replacement at Mount Holly. If you look, would be on the south side, that whole end looks like a wave going down through where there's just, he had told me some things he thought it was, but I hate to say anything about who put the roof up before because I don't know who it was or how it was done. He thought some shortcuts have been taken. Yeah, it doesn't look good. The roof, there's a lot of shingle damage. There's some shingles lifting. The roof is in not very good shape at all. Now, I'm not saying all of it, but there's way more than 70% of it is in dire need. So this board will either have to decide we're going to fix the roof that needs to be fixed. We're going to have to fix part of it this fall. He's going to put together a price for us to get that part fixed. And then we'll have to decide which direction we want to move with the rest of the roof as early as next summer. I hate giving a school board bad news like that, but that's where we're at with the roof at Mount Holly. There are some places above the kitchen that the soffit fascia boards have separated from the roof line by 2 inches. So the roof is in bad shape.
Can you guess as to the order of magnitude of the cost of the repair or the replacement?
So I asked him about the repair, and I want to be very careful about what I say because it's a guess for him. And I told him I wouldn't hold him to that price. He's going to work on an estimate because I didn't know. I mean, is this 50,000? Is it 5,000? He thought somewhere's in the $10,000 range, but he wasn't sure. I think it depends a lot on when he opens it up, how much damage they see underneath it. Now, the problem with fixing, putting a Band-Aid on this is that if we decide to do a new roof replacement, when I say roof, I don't believe we're changing all the plywood. I think we're talking about, a new shingled roof, and replacing any damage along the way. We didn't find any more spongy spots where we walked. We obviously didn't walk on the gym part because it's too steep. The plywood seemed to be solid except for in that one area. But if we put a Band-Aid on that, they'll tear that back up in the spring. So, unfortunate.
So how much do you think the whole new roof would be?
I wouldn't even dare guess. I really wouldn't. The only thing I can tell you is the Green Mountain roof probably was bigger than that. That was in 2016, and it was a little more than 800,000. It was a flat roof, and it was rubber. We're talking shingles, and there's a lot of roof up there. I was surprised when I got up there and started looking around. There's a lot more roof than what it looks like when you start walking it.
Can we get an estimate for the replacing the roof?
So Vermont Roofers is who I called out of Rutland. We've used them before. They're reliable, then they're local. He came right over the next day, and he's working on a budgetary number, which obviously this is going to be a big project where it would have to go out to bid. So he'll work on a budgetary number so I can come back and tell the board if you want to have Cheryl look for a low interest loan, or we want to talk about a small bond, or however we want to finance it, we'll have a base number that we can start working from.
That's for the repair or the replacement?
Both. He's going to give me a hard number for the repair and a budgetary number for the replacement.
And they could get the repair done before snow flies.
He did say that they could do the repair before snow flies. Yep.
The repair be done, but not
Not a full roof?
not a full. So we have to Band-Aid it regardless.
Correct. I mean, there's some other options, right? I mean, I hate to say it, but there is another option that says you put the Band-Aid on it and leave the rest of it the way it is until you have more major problems where I'm reporting back to the board saying you have no choice. We have to fix it. But I don't think that's the right direction to go. The roof I was surprised to see that the roof is in that bad a shape. There's a lot of shingles that are cracked. They're going to be gone very shortly. I was asked, do you remember, Craig thought it was 2004 that roof got put on.
It was, I bet it was, well, maybe. I bet it was somewhere between 2001 and 2004-ish, yeah. It was Jim Van Hoof, the gym roof was there, yes.
That roof was on and then they repaired the rest of it.
Yeah.
And then they did the foaming on the inside.
Yeah.
That same summer that they put the new shingles down.
Yes.
So I think that was the summer I got there. So I didn't know, I couldn't remember who did it. You?
Paul Nevin might, because he was the clerk of the works, I think.
Or Dave Manager might too.
I don't know if Dave was around at that point. He might have been.
He was, because he was on the committee that hired him.
Okay. What year was that, Greg?
2000, the summer of 04, so 20 years ago. But I came in as they were finishing, so I didn't really have any supervision.
Is there a reason why? I mean, I know 25-ish years is sort of a standard roof, but would we expect it to be in this bad a shape at 20-ish years?
So I mean, I really don't want to speculate on what caused it. I mean, this company had some ideas, but I mean, I don't want to pit one contractor against another. I mean, he didn't know who did the roof. He thought it was done. His words were he thought it was done on a very tight budget. Like, so that they maybe have, cut some corners where maybe they shouldn't have.
Was there some question about how well vented or not well vented it is?
Yeah, I mean, he had some questions on which I couldn't answer. I mean, I wasn't anywhere near around here when that happened, but he felt that the waving on the south side was because it wasn't very good ventilation from one peak to the other, and the drip edges were straight off, and that's why we're seeing a lot of rotting on the fascia boards and into the soffits. So there's stuff he noticed. He wasn't blaming anybody, just said that just doesn't happen anymore. There's curves in the drip edges, so the water doesn't do that. There's proper ventilation on your peak, so you don't get that heaving. A lot of that heaving is causing those shingles to lift, and we're going to have more problems in a short period of time.
I thought EEI had looked at the roof a year ago, and they told us then that they thought it was okay.
No, that's not what happened, Dave.
Okay.
2 years ago, when all of us stood in the parking lot, we had a conversation about adding the roof project at Mount Holly into the bond, and there was a determination made by everybody standing there that the roof was going to make it another 10 years and that we didn't have to worry about it. So we decided to leave the roof out of the project. So nobody ever gave the roof another look because they didn't want to nobody wanted to put it into the bond project.
My memory is that we had an opinion. I think I was at that parking lot meeting, that we had an opinion from EEI that it wasn't, unlike the boiler, it was not a critical project at that time. And so, we planned accordingly, meaning, it wasn't the highest priority item.
And that could have changed a lot in 2 years. I mean, we could have had a lot of that damage could have came in the past couple of years. I mean, I don't know. It's hard to say. I mean, there's shingles missing at the peak, and we all know when you have bare wood out in the weather, it doesn't take long, especially with shingles. If water is getting underneath it, staying there, not having any place to go and just sits there, it causes a lot of damage in a hurry.
But should we ask the board for a not to exceed out of the capital reserve so that if we get the estimate back, we can move forward, because when we meet in November, we could potentially be getting snow at any time.
Yeah, my biggest concern, and I think, don't want to speak for Todd, but I think his as well, is just making sure it's safe.
Yeah.
And you don't know what you're going to get for snowfall this year. And so at least the getting the repairs done, I think, is going to be, get us through until the time can come where we can make the bigger decision. And more importantly, not have faith if we make that decision. Todd's also, I appreciate the comment as well, but it's 10,000 for the repair that's going to be undone. If we decide to do it, I think it's really well.
It's not, it doesn't sound like a choice to me.
There's two places right now the water's leaking. Water's leaking into Craig's office, and it's leaking into the boiler room. So, and that's definitely where the water is coming from. The right straight, both of those leaks are right directly above where those shingles are missing and it's running right down the roof and leaking into those two places.
And it'll save you more damage, which is
Right.
Because of the water infiltration. It's how much is in the reserve fund now?
Plus we have the 350 move in for this year. Todd, is the 10,000 the low end of the estimate or the high end, do you think?
I think it depends, Cheryl, on what they find when they pull shingles up. And he kept saying that. He didn't want he was saying somewhere, and I want to be very careful that he didn't tell us it was going to be $10,000. I asked him to give me a ballpark, right? It could be more, it could be less. I think it all depends on what they find when they start pulling shingles up and how much damage there is and how far it's gone.
And I would keep our fingers crossed, because if it comes back above 40, it's got to go out to bid.
I really didn't want to, I mean, I hate delivering bad news like this because the boiler project is such a great project. I wish everybody could have seen how it went, how well it went, how it just, and them doing everything to take care of the moisture underneath the building. And this kind of takes away from that. It's unfortunate because, you know, this is a great addition to Mount Holly, is this new boiler. And I feel bad that we're not celebrating that. We're talking about something else. So.
Second, that's on you and that whole team to just a remarkable job. It's been really a high quality execution of that project.
Todd, do you have a wish of a not to exceed number that you'd like us to consider tonight, or?
For the repair?
Yeah, I think we're looking at just the repair, so yeah.
You know, I think Cheryl's probably right. I mean, if we were talking, no, I really don't want to give a number because I don't know. I mean, I'd rather wait for, as soon as that number comes back, even if it's an emergency Zoom meeting, or I can talk to Lane and he can talk to the board chair, or however that's going to work. I'd rather wait until we get that back and give you a concrete number before I guess that.
Not to exceed, then it exceeds it, then we could have the emergency.
That's what I was
Yeah,
thinking.
I agree.
Would it be reasonable, and I'm making this up, I don't really know, but I'm thinking my math skills might be figuring 20% would make it 12,000 if we added a little contingency of 20% to the 10. We call it 12 not to exceed, and then have an emergency meeting if we start to exceed.
Well,
If
one,
we have to do it, we might as well, even do a bigger number.
I think bigger. I was thinking 39,000 just in case, because if we hit the 40 mark, then we have to get two other bidders, right? So why don't we do the 39,000? This way you don't have to have a meeting. And then if it's more than that, then we have to have a meeting.
With the direction that, if we feel that the bid is higher than it should be, then we'll go out and check it.
actually, along those lines, it sounds like, Todd, I appreciate your investigating all of this. Should we get a second opinion on both the status quo and the solutions? I mean, I don't have any experience in commercial construction, obviously, but just as a homeowner, my sense is that opinions and estimates vary widely from one expert to the next. And if we're talking about a lot of money, and particularly money that will be, useful to us for like a year, and then we have to go back and do it all again, I would feel more comfortable if we had more than one evaluation of this and more than one estimate.
Julie, I think we have to do this quick though, before the snow comes, and it's going to be a project, and I think it should be done quickly. And I've heard, it's just a personal opinion, but very good things about that company, Vermont Roofer. I know a lot of people have used them, and they're supposed to be really good. So I just think it's something that should be done.
I think I would leave it to Todd and Wayne. That's what I was going to say, is
Cheryl.
delegate that judgment to us if it seems extreme. Todd will have a pretty good feel.
And part of it is you'll know until you start taking things off, you don't really know what's underneath there. And so the only way to find out is to take things apart, isn't it?
So I 100% agree with Julie. I think that competition breeds a better price for everybody, whether it's a homeowner or our school district's money. Under this circumstance, I don't want to say that we're up against the wall, but we do have a contractor that is well known to the supervisory union. They've done work for us before. I felt confident talking to them that it wasn't something that they were looking to take advantage of. I can look into it. I can look around and just get somebody else up there just to give me an idea. What was made me really happy about this is we got a major problem and had a reputable company that said he could put something together and that they could do it before snow flies. We all know that trying to find somebody right now is like finding a needle in a, haystack to get somebody to do something on a moment's notice. So I can look around and I don't have a problem with that, and call a couple other roofers and see if I can get somebody there and, and take a look at it. And get their opinion for sure.
Off the top of my head, I would say if it's 10 or 15,000, then time is of the essence and do it. If it's much more than that, then you probably want to do more homework.
Yeah, but I would delegate that to Todd.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Have it come back.
And I think I'd be comfortable with that. I mean, I have a number in my head that I think the repair should be. If it came back to double that, I think I'd be running, like Julie said, to find somebody else and I'd be like, no, we're not going to do that. We got to think about something else. So, okay, I'll work on that. That's so where are we at with that from the board? Are we, if this comes back at X amount of dollars and Lane and I are comfortable with that, am I telling Vermont roofers that we want to move forward and get this done? Or are we exploring a couple other contractors and see where we land with that and then make a decision?
I think we leave it to you guys to figure out.
I think we need a motion though that
Right.
gives specific directions. So I think somebody needs to make a motion and then second it, have discussion before we send Todd on his way.
So off the top of my head, I would move that we authorize not to exceed $35,000 for the project with the understanding that Todd and Lane will look at the estimate when it comes in. If they think it's excessive, they will seek more information, seek alternatives. If they think it's reasonable, then they'll go ahead and do it. So it's a long motion.
Second.
Thank you. Any other discussion about the motion? I guess my question is, where are we going to pull $35,000 from? We have it in capital reserve, and that's not going to affect other things that we've talked about that I'm not thinking about at the moment.
The boiler was the big thing, and we came in less than what we anticipated.
And how much less were we?
Todd, how much did the bid come in compared to what we had anticipated?
For the boiler?
267?
Yeah, 267 and some change, I think. Yeah.
So what we saved on the boiler would cover it.
But we also have current 100,000.
Right. You're okay. Any other questions?
So I want to end this with, oh no, I wanted you to vote first. Sorry. Go ahead. I want to end it on a good note.
I guess my other thought is I hate, and I don't know that we have another choice. I just hate Band-Aiding something to know that we're going to rip it up, and I don't know how to avoid that. If there were a way to avoid it, I would rather spend a little bit more this year than to have to.
But even if you had money, you couldn't do a new roof before the fall.
I asked him point blank if I came before the board and the board came back and said, let's get this out to the Vermont bid website and let's get on this. He said, you will never find a contractor to put a roof on before snow flies this year, not of this magnitude.
And there's not a way to do, I don't know, because it's that long section or that short section out by the multipurpose room. Is that what you directionally challenged? South seems to be like it would be toward the gym, but I don't really know.
Facing the plate.
yeah, that's what.
I
Okay,
think
so-
where my office is.
Right, above.
Straight
So,
up.
I mean, I was just thinking, can we replace the whole roof of that section? Like, that's all, I'm just asking. I don't really know. Like, it seems like that's sort of an addition, and if we replaced that, then maybe we wouldn't have to tear it up. I'm sure you've thought of that because you're smarter than me in this stuff, but I'm just having to ask it.
So when we get to the point where we decide we're going to put a roof on this building, I think obviously we will, just like Julie said, we will go out to bid. You decide whatever you want. I'm not saying you're going to, but if you do, you say, okay, we're going to do this. We're going to go out to bid. We're going to get 3, 4, as many as we can contractors to give us every opinion and every option that we have. Right now, by looking at what I saw, that main part of the building where the classrooms are, the kitchen, the front office, where the cafeteria is, that's a no-brainer. That has to be done. That's in dire need. That has to be done. That has to be done. The
Yeah,
rest of the roof, we didn't climb the roof on the gym. It's too steep. We couldn't climb it. So I don't know if that's in dire need or just, is it the smart thing to do to replace the whole thing? And then we're not leaving that for generations down the road where we change the roof and 5 years later you change the rest of it. And it's a continuous project. Every 10, 15 years, you're putting some kind of roof work into your school.
But I mean, Kelly's question was sort of, is it possible if we did a little bit more work now, the piece that we did would not need to be replaced over the summer?
Yeah, I'll ask him that when he sends the quote back in, and I'll ask him if it can be done where they don't have to remove that and work from there onwards. I'll definitely ask him that. Yep.
We did that entire roof line
Right.
for slightly more, at
Yep.
least not re-spending that money. That would be my only.
Yep.
I support investigating that further. Thank you, Kelly, for that suggestion.
I mean, I'd rather spend 60,000, I think, and know that we're not ripping it up.
Yep.
If we can do that whole,
Or at least enough where they can just continue on, or whoever could continue on with the roof replacement from that patch. Yeah, we can do that for sure. I'll talk to him about that when it comes back.
and, okay, so we have a motion. We discussed, is there more discussion? I just want to keep us focused because I lose track at this time of night. We're good? Okay. Are we ready to vote? Okay. All those in favor of.
Can someone restate the motion? There's been some discussion. I don't remember exactly what we're voting on.
I think, can I clarify it just
Please.
so that we are all, I think Dave's motion was to motion up to 35,000, giving Lane and Todd discretion over if they feel it's reasonable and the contractor's able to do it and those kinds of things, for them to go ahead and approve it.
Kind of balancing cost and time, because we're
Correct.
up against them.
Right. And if it's not reasonable, they'll come back and revisit getting bids or something. Does that seem like what you said, Dave?
Close
Okay.
enough.
Close enough.
It's probably been recorded, I said.
Right. Sorry, Amber. All right. So all of those in favor of Dave's motion of up to 35,000.
All right.
Anybody opposed? Do we still have a quorum because Jamie had to leave? All right. We're good then. All right.
Okay, and I never take this long for my report, so I apologize deeply because I know board meetings get long, but to end my report on a good note. So what I told you about the 2-layer membrane and the pump and the dehumidifier, which will help our boiler room as well with our brand new boiler in it. I saw the estimate on that. It was somewhere, if we stayed with the upgraded membrane, was somewhere around $15,000. So EEI is covering that. I want everybody to be, they did save some money on the flue, but it wasn't that much. So this is a huge help for us. I just want to make sure that just is a good deal for us to get that done on that end of that building. It's going to take care of a lot of moisture problems in that school.
Well, Todd, I think we want more from you. Can you tell the board a little bit about what you guys were recommending on the bond?
On which end, Dave?
Well, do you want to talk about it during the facilities committee report?
Oh, okay, good. I don't care when we talk about it.
Yeah.
We sent to Todd.
To make sure that I'm just restating, the potential for going out for a bond this year, the parts and pieces that we had talked about being on that.
I mean, it seems like now we're adding a piece. It would seem like the sensible way to do it before jumping into discussion was to be adding a roof to the bond.
Yeah, so the original pieces, if I remember, we had talked about the roof work at this school. We had talked about replacing the bay of windows and the potential for some of the lighting transition to save on the efficiency.
And the ADA stuff.
Yeah.
So we looked at things that were critical, and things that were safety, and things that brought us to ADA compliance, and it came to 2.8 million, if I remember, but I could be wrong.
It was somewhere in there. Yep. You're right. Yep.
Well, and the other thing that Todd had told us is that there's was it USDA? Anyway, a federal program that would give us a 2% loan.
If it's for efficiency improvements.
Yeah.
If efficiency improvements were involved, then I don't know how long that's going to last, Dave. I'm not sure how long that 2% loan, and it's for fewer years. So there are some, I think it was 15 years. Is that what Eric said, Cheryl?
Yeah, it was a shorter amount of time. I think 15 is correct.
Well, I remember talking about 10 years.
But the roof very well may, because a lot of the problems that you're having now with the infiltration, and Todd can probably talk better than I can on this, so correct me if I'm wrong, is that the insulation up there is damaged. And so, when you repair the roof, if you add the insulation piece in and do it properly, it probably would be covered, but it would be worth checking out, to be sure. We can put the note down to make sure that we follow up on that.
And just assuming that we'd be replacing it with the same materials, is there a better option? I think that would be included in your discussion with them as well.
So since then, we're talking about the Mount Holly roof?
Yeah, sorry.
Shingles are, without pulling them up and really looking at them, he thought that was a 20-year roof. They put a 30 or 40-year shingle up. They nail them completely different now. He said there's just been a lot of improvements even in the past 15 years and 20 years about roofing and how contractors do it. So it would just be better all the way around, not because of the contractor, just because of the way contractors do things now compared to 20 years ago. So
would there be, given the extended life of a metal roof, would that be worth taking a look at?
Well, I asked him about a metal roof. I said, look, for aesthetics, for, longevity. And he said, maybe, but he said, I don't know if any school districts can afford that much for a metal roof. And I wouldn't suggest it. It would look great and it would be awesome. But he said the price is triple of what asphalt shingles are.
I think we all agreed that we did not want to have a school bond vote the same day as the school budget vote. And if we want to do it earlier than that, do the bond vote first? No. Again,
we need a budget to run.
I guess if we have to do the roof over the summer, right? How soon do we need to have a bond so we can do it?
I don't know if we need a bond. Cheryl, are there any loans that we can get without going to bond to do a roof?
We get a
like a bridge loan. That would carry us to the time where we went out to bond. Right?
I missed part of that.
Paying for the roof so
Yeah.
that we can get somebody lined up early enough, because if we don't go out. to
Yeah, it'll
bond
push it
loan,
off another year.
we'd have to push off so that we could potentially get some sort of loan that would bridge us to the time that we could go out to bond.
It's, trying to think if we could do this.
What would happen if we had a loan to bridge and then the bond failed? We'd just be continue to pay on the loan, right?
It might be worth talking to legal. Of course, we don't want to confuse the voters either. But as part of the vote, you could add on a provision that says, hey, we need a roof. Are you in support of adding the 800,000 or whatever it is to be put into reserve to be used for this project? And so they could vote no on that piece, but still vote yes for the project.
But we need two roofs, right? Shh. I mean, it's just a Ludlow roof and the same urgency. Are the two roofs equally urgent or no?
I would say yes. I mean, there's been the IR scan when they did it at Ludlow showed some damage to the Ludlow Elementary roof. I mean, it's almost the same age. I mean, we'd have to look a little bit more in detail than talking about it right here, but I mean, that was the original bond discussion, was a roof at LES, lighting upgrades at both schools, some life safety improvements at both schools, and windows at LES.
What about HVAC?
That wasn't included.
In the bond?
No, well, in the smaller one, the second one.
Oh,
Yeah, in the smaller one. There was no HVAC upgrades.
okay. I mean, if that's, so doing a roof now at Ludlow, doesn't that impact whether we can go back? Because my memory is, at least from round one, that we would have been locating a lot of the units on the roof in Ludlow. So if we go back and do the roof now, does that mean that a future HVAC project would be more difficult, or, same concept, like ripping up work that we've already done?
So we would definitely, when I talked to Eric about a roof replacement at Ludlow, there was some discussions about rooftop units and how much there would be implications if we wanted to change those in the short future on, what it would cause to the roof, and that would have to be taken into consideration before we replace that roof, for sure. Yeah.
And I guess it just seems to me that we know we need to do two roofs next summer. So that we need to have a timeline that will enable us to do that. And I don't know what that timeline is, or how soon it would mean we need to vote in order.
What, and again, it's complicated to try to connect it with the budget piece, but like I said, I think you can do it, right? Because they vote on separate, articles, right? When they do the vote. So one of the articles is, are you willing to pay, the 24 million to run the schools? The other articles that are below it are voted on separately, and it's usually about reserve funds or putting money into reserve funds. We could make the request for the money required for the roofs in one of those other articles so that they could potentially vote yes on the budget but vote no for the piece. But again, you're going to put potentially the budget process in this.
Well, that's basically what we did last time, and people conflated the two.
Yeah, and
they thought, I'm gonna vote no on both.
Well, unfortunately, the amounts were very similar.
Yeah.
Right, that was a huge piece of it, but yeah, I mean, we consciously made that decision, and we were.
And it took us 3 times to get our budget done.
You've got, what is it, 30 days? Would it take 30 days to get a bond in? Okay, so that's pushing us pretty close to. So if we started today, we're at, so that would be like early December. It's separated from March, but in January, the board has to vote on what it's going to ask from the voters.
Right.
So that's could be part of the discussion today. Do we want to try to do that? And if so, is it both or one? And it would have to go out. It's a more complicated process. Todd, is the EEI assessment good enough to use to judge the cost?
That's a quick phone call to Eric or Mike Davey to find out if the engineered plans that they had for this past bond would carry over to another vote for this year. I can't imagine it's 10% more. I don't know. I'm guessing. I don't know. It's obviously going to increase like everything, but to answer your question, I would say they should be able to give us a fairly solid number. Just
So they'll have to do it for Ludlow, but not for Mount Holly. And the only reason I'm bringing that up is because you need a number to ask for.
Right.
And we want to make sure it's in the right ballpark.
Well, I mean, to some extent, you ask for a number, and if the roofs use it up, then you don't do the windows. You know, I mean, I'm just making that up, but it seems like the roofs are you got to do it. And the other things are things. Yeah, I mean, the whole everything on the list were last time were things we should be doing, but we obviously don't want to go ask for $9 million of.
I think for tonight, and people can correct me if I'm wrong, I think for tonight, we go forward with the Mount Holly roof as your motion was. And Todd and Lane discuss what needs to be done and come back to us at a November meeting with a proposal, timeline, ideas, for really where we stand. I personally, I hear what you're saying, and if we went to bond or not bond, vote for a bond, and then we didn't do all of the things that were encompassed in the bond, I would assume we'd be remiss and I don't want to say legally, but X, Y, and Z. I think
In the bond information specifically,
It has
that's not listed, but it's a conversation.
right.
So I have an idea. I have an idea. If we're going to talk about a bond, if that's what the board is thinking, why don't we all talk to Lane and get back a hold of EEI, and we'll talk about, and correct me if I'm wrong, a roof at LES, a roof, windows, life safety, and ADA, and on LED lighting upgrade. At Mount Holly, LED lighting upgrade, life safety, ADA, and a roof. And if the bond passes, at least one of those or two of those projects could start next summer. And that will be the roofs at each building. We can still move forward with getting the patch done because we have to. That's going to do nothing but cause us problems, maybe more problems than we even want to encounter. So we have to do the patch, and I'll take your advice, and we'll, try to do the patch so it could, stay there and they could build the new roof around the patch. Maybe that's the right direction for us to go, and then include it all in one instead of trying to finance the roof at Mount Holly separate than another bond.
So one person that we should hear from is Cheryl, because, if we're going to go out to a bond in quick order, that's a lot of work, and we need the opinion of whether or not it's possible, feasible. What's your thoughts?
I'd have to look back at the timeline. We'd have to pick one where we're going to vote. We have to advertise 3 weeks prior to that. You have to have a meeting a week before that. So if you want to go in December, we really need to do something before the end of the month here.
It's December. It seems
like we're just not ready to. I mean, while it would be nice to do it in December, it doesn't seem like it's feasible.
I'm also thinking we get more people at our meetings in January as we approach budget, right? We talk about it when people are here more, and maybe look at doing a vote in February. It's far enough away from March that it's separate, but it gives us a little bit of time. There's still time before summer. We can ask for advice from Todd and EEI and whoever about timelines, and they can come back to us hopefully in November with that information.
So as I recall, January 25th is the last day when we have to approve the regular budget. In some ways, if the vote could be before that, right?
Well, that's what,
Right.
if you're gonna do a bond and passes, you need the bond payment in the budget. So
Okay,
if we
well,
don't know
yeah.
that ahead of time.
Well, and if it got voted down, then we need to put in the budget, whatever we're gonna do, to get, to get through. So to me, if it were possible to aim for a vote in the middle of January, right?
Yeah, it's still good to see it, right? It's March when people are actually going to the polls. The reality is, and I don't mind having the communications about this with the community, is the idea that we have to take care of our choice. I mean, that's really what this is about. We're in this vote not because of anybody's fault here, and understanding that for the taxpayers, Vermont's a tough state, but we're going to be paying a lot more to do these projects if we don't do them now. Yeah.
No, I think there's a real difference between these projects and the ones, the list we had last time.
Yeah.
The list last time included things that should have been done, and would have made a difference, but only a few of them were the boiler and the roof here were the only ones that it seemed like were real emergencies, Yeah.
Julie has her hand up.
Oh.
Yeah, I guess, so two thoughts, tagging back to Dave's comment there. I don't agree with just sort of subsistence level capital investment. I actually think HVAC is really important, given what we know about air quality in the wake of the pandemic and its connection to health and learning, particularly at a place like Ludlow, where you do have a lot of little bodies in those classrooms. So I'll just put that out there. Yes, nothing is on fire with an HVAC system, ideally. But to me, something like that is very important to the quality of the education. It's directly related to health and wellness in that room. But anyway, Lane, can you explain to me why? So we know we're going for a vote, in March, but why can't it? Is it for optics reasons that we have to pull the capital projects out of the regular budget? What would
you could? So the other option is that you could put this whole dollar amount into the budget vote, but then it's gonna potentially sink the whole budget, right? And then we're back to kind of having to revote and revote potentially like you went through last year. Keeping them separate potentially is going to make it easier at least to get the operating budget through. And then, we try to deal with the capital project. But again, I'm thinking about this as we're sitting here. You do have the potential of asking for all the money in the vote, explaining it to the citizens why. The fact is, well, either way, the tax impact Cheryl would have to calculate. But again, somewhere between 2/3 and 75% of that money would be coming from other people's pockets because of how ed funding is. The caution that we have to have is they're putting back in place the threshold. We got to make sure that it's not going to push us above the spending threshold for students, because there are some real penalties that come into play if you do that.
$800,000.
Would the tax implication by doing it in one step or two be the same?
I think, and so I'm thinking off the cuff with your question without a lot of reflection. I think there is a difference between having it in the regular budget and having it separate, and that it's a little bit more hidden and not in people's face. It's if it's a part of the budget because this is a critical thing that we need to do, that's why we put it there. It's not really as standout-ish as saying we need $2 million separately above and beyond what you already gave us, right? Because then that's
I guess we need to hear from the lawyers too. I think it may be that a bond vote has to be a separate.
It does.
That's separate.
Yeah, bond vote
You have
does,
to get
right.
permission
Yeah,
from
but
the
we could
council.
what I'm saying is we could ask the taxpayers to pay for it from the regular budget this year.
There's three options.
And $2 million for the two roofs.
The whole project.
I'm hearing three choices, right? In the budget as a separate line item for capital reserve or a bond. So there's three separate levels, not just two. I think that, yeah. Do we have I'm just trying to keep us on time here. Do we have between now and November direction, and then we'll come back and visit it in November?
Yeah, I would say let us do some reflection and maybe do some calculations. My gut is telling me right now, but that may change, that we may have a better chance to try to put the whole thing in.
Yeah, we don't know anything about the yield yet, so it's gonna be hard to get kind of accuracy on information.
How close have we been to the threshold? That'll be my last question.
We've been bumping right up against it, but that was prior to the change in the funding. So
That's the new way of counting. I thought we had a bunch of room.
we have some room.
Right.
Yeah, and if you're trying to maximize and leverage what we're able to get out of the ed funding system the way it is, getting up there against that is not necessarily a bad thing, because you're getting your maximum benefit that way. Yeah. So, all right, we got a direction.
right.
I appreciate the conversation.
Sure. Okay, we are lost. Administrative curriculum. Why can't I find Todd's report?
Thank you, Todd.
Hello.
You going to the open house or what?
We did. Wait, I really can't see it.
I went earlier, it's all done.
You. All right. Sorry.
Stop talking.
Tired. Cheryl, financial report.
Okay, so September 30th brought us a quarter way through the fiscal year, so that's going by quickly. So everything is in alignment with where I would expect it to be for this time of year. We currently have 135 7 through 12 students that we pay tuition for, and we budgeted for 141. So we have a little bit of wiggle room with that. We're headed into budgeting, as you are all aware. The first step in the process is the service plan for special ed, because I do the supervisory union budget first, because that is paid for by the districts. So I need to get those numbers in. Today and tomorrow, I attended, it's a superintendent's business manager meeting, and they talk about the budgeting and really the problems that are going on. It's the future of education committee. Right. And Megan Roy, who's the head of it, was the one that directed this meeting today. So it was an interesting conversation, and a lot of what, when you talked about with what's going on with the Green Mountain District is the redistricting and the class sizes and all that, discussion facilities. That was kind of a repeat conversation of what we had today. Some of those things are nice because you realize that we're not in this alone. We are not on an island. This is a problem that everybody faces. So she really was looking for feedback from the people that are on the ground doing this to take back to the committee that has to report to the legislature. In December, they have to give some recommendation of guidelines for our budget, which is tough because we have to have a first draft done way before then. And then in December of 25, then they would give their final report. So interesting conversation, and yeah, a lot. It's a lot.
It brings up a good point that if it's, if you're looking at 2025, you're saying December of 2025,
So they have to give recommendations in
This
December of
year.
24
but the final isn't.
to 25.
So that actually makes it more likely that, if we're gonna go for it, we probably should try to go for it now and just get it all in the regular budget. But let's reflect on that, because we got a year before they might change stuff. We don't get the.
Well, it sounds like the legislature may take some of the recommendation and make some changes like they had on the fly, which is usually a problem for us.
Yeah.
They won't do anything before January when we have to get our budget probably.
No, because that's the way that it goes. They'll wait until we get it all set and then say, oh, you can't do that. So yeah, interesting conversation. Yeah, so the audit is complete and I hope to have the drafts by mid.
We budgeted for 140-ish kids and we only have 130-ish. Did we lose some, or is it just?
Moving students, yeah. I mean, kids came in. I know a lot of new kids came in, so it's gonna change that. When we get into budgeting, I'll try to do a report of like how many kids have gone to like the river and how that changes. I do see a decline in students. I think we had like 60 kids in the beginning going to Green Mountain, and I think when I looked at this last time, it was 36. So they kind of focused on like the river and Green Mountain, and we had a few other places, but it seems to be like kind of spreading out a lot more.
Interesting. I'm not sure. Yeah. Anything else for you? Questions for Cheryl? Thank you. Limited school choice. Do you want to talk about that?
Okay, you want me to do it?
Do we have to, or can we defer it till next time?
Or
You have the right to table
Yeah.
anything, you'd have to make a motion. And by the way, their meetings usually aren't this long.
you might be lying. Do we want to table it? Someone would have to make a motion.
Yeah, I move that we table it and discuss it next month.
Is that for all of the new business pieces or just for this? Oops, sorry about that. Hold it, okay, yeah.
Old business, and we've already talked about policy governance, right? So, yeah. Anybody want a second Dave's motion to table limited school choice? Any discussion? All those in favor?
I have a question, sorry. Lane, is there anything that will need to be decided in the next month around limited school choice?
In terms of actually students, you mean, or in terms of, not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
But I will double check. Most of the stuff that I have, when I looked at this and I talked with some folks, is really it's fixing the wording. It's a pretty good proposal. And the one, there's actually two pieces. One of them is the potential for putting in a hardship clause in there, so that if we can go above the 6, if there's good reason to do so, if it's going to be helpful to a child. And then the other one actually connects potentially with you, is that this idea that we have to pay half and half. If I've got 3 people from Green Mountain going to LMH and vice versa, 3 people going the other way, we shouldn't have to do the billing, right? Because they cancel each other out. We should have wording in there that we only do the billing and put people through that process if
There's a difference.
there's a difference.
But nothing really happens till March,
Right. All right, so all those in favor of tabling the limited school choice till November?
Okay.
Anybody opposed? Perfect. Policy governance, we did. New business, reserve funds requested, Mount Holly School.
We did.
We did, that was Todd's, right? Two Rivers Southeast Education Association to negotiate.
So the association sent its letter, right? Both the support staff and the teachers' contracts are up this coming year. So this is the time to negotiate. So under the CBA, one side or the other reaches out and says, hey, we're willing. And so my recommendation to the board here is to vote to enter into willingness to enter into negotiations with them. I was not here previously. Have you already set who your people would be for negotiations?
We have,
And do they,
committee. However, when we didn't have a full board, we sort of tabled that. So the teacher bargaining council would be Jamie and an empty spot and an alternate that is also empty. So we would need to,
vote on who your membership would be, and that, if that could happen tonight, that would be good. The sooner we can get the negotiations going on strategically is better.
so first things first, we would have to have a motion to enter into negotiations with the teachers. And then we would have to create.
Have to decide who your members are, your subcommittee.
Would it be likely that you would meet before the next meeting, our next meeting?
Once we also get the vote from Green Mountain, then we'd be able to start setting up dates and times.
No, I mean, since we're still down 2 members, right?
Yeah, oh, I see what you're saying.
So I'm saying, in some ways, it's hard to do committees,
Right.
when we're less than a full board.
Yeah, I'll leave that up to your discretion. Will it really harm anything? It may slow things down. The place that we don't want to be, and I don't know how things have worked in the past, is she's got to be able to predict the budget for next year. If we haven't concluded negotiations by your vote, that has to happen by January 25th. We have to guesstimate in the budget where we think negotiations are going to land.
Which then affects negotiations.
Yeah, and it can be problematic. So the sooner we can start, the better off we are.
Well, and maybe if we had somebody who would be willing to go if there's a meeting before our next meeting. Right?
Well, if we
And
can appoint
then-
the person to fill the blank spot, and then we can save the alternate
Right.
for next meeting. That seems reasonable.
I think if I've got you, hope I'm not misinterpreting, the idea is that you potentially got 2 new people that are coming on board that might want to participate.
That's a tough date for someone new that hasn't.
Yeah.
Right, that's another.
Unless you like punishment, right?
So we would do nominations for that committee. Is there anybody, well, let's first decide we're gonna do it. So do we have a motion to enter into negotiations with teachers?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Any discussion about that? Okay, all those in favor of entering negotiations?
All right.
Thank you. All right, so we will do that. Then I would propose, we fill the second slot tonight. And then fill the alternate slot next month, thank you, God. Next month. Okay, so is there anybody who would like to be on the teacher negotiation committee? It is a short but meaty in that amount of time. So there'll probably be a meeting a week-ish for a couple of months, and then it's over.
It's usually, it depends. Usually you hit it, if you're not agreeing on things, you hit and pass by the third meeting. And then there'll be a period of time while people identify, who the arbitrator is gonna come in. I've never been in a negotiation that went past the arbitration level. Usually that night, everybody just wants to make a deal. And so, you're potentially talking, if we do a pre-meeting so that we discuss strategy, and then meeting with the union and potentially arbitration. I don't expect that to happen. I don't know what the norm is here. So I would say probably 5 meetings.
We don't, it's more than every other week. I don't think we did weekly because it gave us time to
Yeah, because you got to go back and research what they're asking and see what the costs are going to be in. So it's usually every other week.
And will we use the same lawyer as last time?
And so that was the other piece is Chris Leopold, it sounds like, is willing to do it. And people sounded, at least at TRSU, that they're comfortable, with Chris. So if that is the pleasure of this board, then yes.
And how finance brain do you have to be? So I'd be willing to do it, as long as I don't have to be finance trained. I'm not a finance person.
Just being logical and thoughtful, fair and just in terms of, what they're asking.
Listen to what Cheryl said.
The lawyer, listen to what the lawyer said.
Yeah, no, Mr. Marquis was like, please get out of my class. Don't come back.
Is there anybody else who would want to do it? Is there anybody who would like to nominate Jen?
I'll nominate.
Thank you, Dave. Second?
I second.
Thank you. All those in favor of Jen being our representation to the, sorry, Julie, but I see your hand now. Representation to the negotiations committee.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Beautiful. You're on. All right, thank you.
Just a heads up, we will.
Okay.
We haven't started that. What's that? Support staff level.
Yeah, I haven't heard from them. I'm gonna reach out. I had asked the teachers if they're a separate unit. If they do things separately, they do. So I'll reach out to support staff and see what that.
I mean, last time with the support staff basically didn't really get going until the teachers had settled on a number. And under,
It was very good, but we only had like 3 or 4 meetings.
right. I mean, you can start and work on the language. And, but in the end, I mean, you're not really gonna do numbers until the future.
Up to them.
Up to them. Yeah. Plus, they should not depend on each other ethically, but.
There are very few support staff at our level.
Next, we have policies, which are all a first read. So did anybody have any questions about those, or we can put them to a second read for November?
So I had one question.
Sure.
Hold on, where's my email? And it's probably just like semantics or whatever, but on the electronic communication one. So where it says, under B, employee communications violation of this policy, at the bottom it says, with a copy of the communication if possible. Why isn't that included with the student violation? Why shouldn't the student have to be a copy? Just, I'm thinking.
I'm sorry, Jen, I missed some of your words and I'm lost now.
I'm sorry.
So you're starting with, under 2B.
I think she's on maybe I'm.
So under enforcement responsibilities?
Yeah.
Okay. So under B, where it says employee communication violation, it's possible. The last sentence says the report should specify type of inappropriate communication by the employee with a copy of the communication if possible.
Yeah.
Why isn't that also for the student communication violation? Just to protect themselves, like, if, so you don't have a he said, she said, like, why doesn't each party have to do their copy of the communication?
So this is a mandated policy, so it is written usually by Linlin and Blackman for the Vermont School Boards Association. I can ask Pietro. My guess is if we're working with a student, we're going to gather that as part of the investigation anyway. Right? With the employee, it looks like they are trying to make sure, of course, specify what type of inappropriate communication was sent to the employee with a copy of the communication if possible, probably for disciplinary action.
Okay.
Yeah, and to make sure that it probably goes into the file. The other possibility is making sure that we are keeping evidence in case there's a court case that comes out of it. And then we have that available if we get some.
Okay.
Those would be my guesses, but I'm happy to talk with Pietro.
I was just curious on why it was for one of that.
Yeah, no, actually, it's a good pickup.
Thank you. All right, so we will bring those all back for a second read in November. Committee reports, TRSU, I missed the meeting because I had a regular work function. Julie, did you go?
I did. There was more talk about policy governance. Geez, I apologize. I don't have the agenda in front of me.
You read through the minutes. It was a pretty short meeting, it seemed like, so.
Yeah, we had the same discussion about negotiations.
Right.
And-
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
Policy committee,
We canceled the last meeting. I don't think we had enough people coming. I couldn't be there for the game. Jamie couldn't be there.
yeah. And the facilities committee, I think we talked about that enough. No policies approved at this meeting. Any other public comment? Are we good? All right. Next regular meeting, November 13th at 6 at Mount Holly. Unless we have to have a special meeting in between for any of the stuff we talked about earlier. Yes. Self-evaluation.
Julie, wait, can I? Before we get going to the next meeting, I've already talked to Eric and Mike from EEI, just since you guys been going on. They like to get on the agenda for the November meeting to talk about everything we talked about tonight.
Perfect.
Yep.
I think that sounds wonderful. Thank you for doing that, Todd.
The only question, Todd, really quick, was weren't they going to meet with, okay, they'll be on different nights anyway.
Yeah.
They were the other board. Yeah.
So board members are given and have read the agenda, background materials prior to the meeting.
Good.
Board members are respectful of each other, the public, and the administration.
Yes.
Board members handle conflict openly and constructively. Not tonight. Board members focus on the role and responsibility of the board.
So,
I think we did okay there. Board members act as a team once a decision has been made and work collaboratively throughout the decision-making process. Favorite part of the night.
move we adjourn.
Someone want to second it?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor?
All right.
Anybody opposed? Beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Julie.